Well, welcome to another episode of Real Estate AI Flash. And today, my guest is Nikki Beauchamp. She's a seasoned multilingual, we'll get into that, I'm sure, real estate advisor with over 2 decades of experience with Sotheby's International Realty from the city that never sleeps, New York City. Welcome, Nikki, to the pod.
Thank you for having me. It really does feel like the city that never sleeps, or maybe I'm the person that never sleeps these days.
That's true. Realtors never sleep, and you're one of the finest that New York City has to offer. So, I gave you a very elevator pitch introduction, but I'd love for you to, before we get into AI and all things AI in real estate, I'd love for you to maybe walk us through your journey of real estate. And I know I went to your website and it said you're a Manhattanite. I've heard that before, but I
Yes.
thought it was very well articulated.
So I
So,
was born and raised in Manhattan. I went to New York City public schools. I went to the very famous Fame High School, the one, I Want to Live Forever, the TV show in the
mhm.
80s, and then the movie.
Yeah.
And kids who are very young only know the second movie. They don't know that it's an actual place and there's a TV show. I played the piano from the age of about 4, and then I started the clarinet when I was 10. And then I went off to NYU for undergrad and grad school. And then I spent time working in tech and finance. I remember the first dot-com boom and bust in the late 90s, just barely early 2000s. And I got into real estate because every company I ever worked at, I was the New Yorker in the room. Again, born and raised, went to school. I'm relatively normal, all things considered. So people would always ask, oh, where should I go? Where should I live? What should I do? So I was referring business to a friend of mine, and they said, oh, you need to get your license because you're generating, referrals for me, and I can't compensate you. All I can do is maybe I can give you a cup of coffee, you know. And I was like, no, I don't need to do that. I don't have time for that. And she eventually convinced me, so I got my license so that I could collect referral fees. And then during my first midlife crisis, when I decided I wanted to do something different, I thought, oh, let me try real estate for a while. And here I am more than 20 years later.
Wow. Well, that's definitely a journey. I think, and when I was talking to you earlier in the week, we talked a little bit about obviously different ways you're using AI, and majority of our listeners, Nikki, obviously are agents. We have a few thousand that listen to our pod, agents, and obviously some brokerage leaders, but really rooted in real estate and how AI can help them. But before we get to your specific use cases, everybody's got their first light bulb moment with AI when it like, oh, this can really help me. What was yours looking
My
back?
first actually came around thinking, how could this save me time? Many, many
Mhm.
moons ago, when I started using social media, and I used to write a blog, I used to write several blogs per week. And I thought to myself, could this compress my editing time? Could this help me refine ideas? And then extending that out to other areas of business, because right now it often feels like, in addition to the 10 million things we have on our plates, we are also our own marketers and and content creators, and it's a lot to do, but maybe it doesn't require operational scale in terms of uh, human staffing. And perhaps there's a lot that I can accomplish with using various AI tools.
All right. Cool. Yeah. No. I think we all have our own moments, and I dug in when ChatGPT first launched, November 30th,
Same.
Thanksgiving weekend, right?
I
2020.
remember.
Yeah. For most people, it was like another Thanksgiving weekend. For me, it was like looking back, it was probably transformational in terms of the journey we're on and how AI is going to influence our productivity and everything we're going to do. So one of the things that you and I spoke about, which I thought was very interesting, that I'd love for you to kind of dig in on, is AI is moving at such an exponential rate that nobody's keeping up. And especially as agents, you got all these things you need to do. You need to run a business. how do agents begin to sort of integrate AI into their businesses to realize small yet noticeable productivity gains? And you had some really good ways you sort of talked about how you sort of did that. So let's dig into that, Nikki.
Yeah, so I am very process oriented. So I like to look and see where is it that I am stuck and what do I need to get unstuck. And for me, a lot of it comes around refining and thinking and editing. And I thought to myself, I'm pretty good with words, but if I can write the skeleton of one concept and then take it to whatever my AI of choice is and ask for different framing. So frame this question or this paragraph to appeal to sellers. Okay, let's frame that to appeal to buyers. And it can help me to kind of think through instead of spending 16 hours trying to create 4 paragraphs.
Yeah, for sure. I think it helps you collapse time in certain segments and really keeping you in the loop. It's not like you're automating everything with AI. It's sort of like it starts with an idea, gets you to the finish line faster as you
Right,
start
exactly.
talking.
And I think that that's really it. It's we're trying to get to that finish line faster. And for me, it's about where can I save time that I can redirect elsewhere. It might mean that I have more time. It should mean that I have more time to spend with my clients. It could mean that I have more time to spend with my family or, my sidekick, my dog, or more time to sleep even.
Yeah. And it gives you the gift of time. I've sort of, put it into use in specific aspects of my work, even working with the podcast. I've have a custom GPT that most of our listeners are aware of what it is. I built one for podcast prep. And so I gave it, my guest today is Nikki Beauchamp, and here's her website. I give her our LinkedIn profile.
Right.
Gives me a one pager on your background as it relates to our podcast mission, and some potential
It
interview questions.
and it's also great for meeting prep. Like I've used it in a
Oh,
similar
definitely.
way when I am preparing to meet a client.
Yeah.
And, I have asked it to sort of cross reference the client with B because maybe there's something I've missed. And it helps me to then frame the conversation in a
Oh,
better
yeah.
way.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. So you talked a little bit about collapsing time, doing things faster, especially because you mentioned blog posts and social stuff. Any other
Yeah,
areas
blog posts, social, your email marketing and newsletters. That is probably my favorite place where I use it because I will
yeah.
write one idea and one concept, and I am my email marketing is very very hyper focused. So, but I'm essentially talking about the same thing.
Yeah.
So how does the quarterly market report relate to sellers and what does it mean for seller opportunity? Okay, what
Yeah.
does it mean for buyer opportunity? What does it mean for investor opportunity? Because at the end of the day, I want to engage in marketing that appeals to my ideal client base to get them to engage with me so we can have a conversation.
Yeah, 100%. And you've been in the industry for a couple of decades, as you mentioned. I mean, I think marketers struggle. Most agents are not efficient marketers or professional marketers unless they kind of grew up with that skill. Marketing seems to struggle with one to many, but if you can use AI to do one to one with your ideal client profile, you're sort of really connecting with personalization at scale,
Yeah,
in
it's
terms
the
of,
personalization at scale. I mean, so I will go into my CRM and I will send. I love using my CRM to scale one message to many people versus doing it through my email marketing platform,
yeah,
right? So I will take that one message and say, okay, I'm sending this to 100 people, but let's tweak each one. And so I do that I write the message once, then I can go in and I can customize for each person as I need to, and done. Tweak, scheduled, done. So something that would have taken me dozens of hours to send out 100 direct messages, I now have done in minutes, not hours.
Yeah. No, I think, and you and I spoke about this earlier on when we were preparing for the podcast. There's CRMs in the real estate space. I believe AI is going to get a lot closer to systems we use,
Yes.
right? And you mentioned Close, Bold Trail. There's all these systems that are available, and all of them are integrating AI that come closer to your use, so you don't have to go out
And I
to
think that
kind of get it.
that's the challenge, is that as more of these tools integrate AI into the
Yeah,
process, it becomes invisible to you as the agent. So I think a lot of the challenges people have is, wait a minute, I have to go to Copilot and then copy and paste, or Chat GPT and copy and paste. And
yeah,
that becomes a friction point. So when that friction is
yeah,
eliminated or
100%.
minimized, then
Yeah.
it just becomes part of what you do.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's where I think some of these, if you are even not using a CRM and you're just using email for communication, most people, like, we're a Google company and we've sort of turned on Gemini.
Right.
So now it's fully integrated into that ecosystem. But to your point, if you're operating in the CRM, you don't need to kind of move to different systems to kind of do stuff. The more simple it is, more integrated it is, the more user friendly it's going to be for agents to embrace it. You know? Um, any other use cases, Nikki, that you sort of feel like it saves you time?
I'm a little bit of data analysis, and I happen to be a little bit of a data geek. That's my
Yeah,
background, like literally statistics, and economics. But again, to give myself a little bit of an edge in just the iterative process, where I might have spent hours on something, I can now spend, you know, I can spend an hour or a half an hour instead of, 4 hours.
yeah. And I think AI does a lot of things potentially, but one of the things it does, it can recognize patterns and analyze data like
And
nobody's
I
business, right?
think that that's a great potential tool for someone who maybe doesn't feel as strong in the data analytics space. So
Absolutely.
you can you can ask it the questions so that you are getting the answers that are supporting what you may intrinsically and instinctively know from your experience. And I think that this has the potential where, many years ago, everybody is trying to, okay, I need to add people to do these things for me. And now there are many
Yeah.
things that it is more cost effective to invest in a tool, to use a tool that's already part of this, what you're being provided or what you have, or
Yeah.
to invest in that tool than to, you know, hire someone.
Yeah. No, one of our upcoming podcasts is with an agent that said, I needed help with a part-time assistant or someone that can do some of these things for me. And she decided to dig into AI head first, and she went to the $200 subscription on ChatGPT per month, the pro one. And she said, it's saving me enough time that I can justify it and not have to hire somebody part-time and kind of get them up trained. And I'm learning new skills. So it's interesting. I think
Yeah, I
over
mean,
time,
I have gone through that thought process myself, where I was like, okay, I really need to hire someone. I'm like,
yeah,
well, I can actually make enough headway with a collection of tools that make sense. Where with the time that I'm saving, okay, maybe I redirect it to learning a couple of other things. But once you refine the process and automate certain things, now I have an SOP that even if I did hire someone, they're coming in and I can
yeah,
hand them, here's what we have so far. If you have ideas of things you want to build on it, that's fine.
yeah, for sure. Um, so before I get to my final two questions, I ask all my guests, anything else that you're seeing that you're using or testing that the audience should look out for?
Oh my God, I feel like there's always something.
There's always
There's always something. But I keep the Chat GPT app on my phone. I use Copilot. I have dabbled in building some custom GPTs for things that I want. I am thinking about a chatbot on my website.
yeah,
Haven't delved into that just yet. What else have I been doing? I'm trying a phone answering service. And what's interesting about that is that they will answer the phone. We have the whole scripting set up,
yeah,
but also the data is being pushed into my CRM. So now I have
yeah,
another way of tracking who's calling, what are they calling me about, why are they calling, and it's to
yeah,
try and gather as much business intelligence as possible, so I can then assess where should I be, investing more time. If I'm
yeah,
getting lots of calls that are coming in directly to my website, okay, maybe I need to focus on my Google My Business page and increase my reviews because I'm getting people coming, but they're not calling, but maybe they would call more if they see the reviews. And I'm not worried about getting the calls because I have a service that's sort of
yeah,
filtering
sure,
for who, what, where, when, and why.
yeah,
Filtering for scheduling. It's there. I think the possibilities are really, really endless with this. And it's again, where are the parts of my business that I am finding that I am stuck?
yeah.
And I would always focus with any tool, finding the tools that fix my most urgent problem.
Good.
And then I
Yeah,
can work on okay, this is kind of urgent, but it's basically using the Eisenhower urgency matrix to figure out what
yeah,
matters the most right now. Fix that, and
100%. I
then I
mean, I
can
think
work on the other things.
exactly. To your point, though, I think if you look at where you're spending your time, the way you get more productive is you collapse time and look at tools that help you solve certain pain points
Yeah.
along the journey. And being a data nerd in a way compared to most real estate agents, I think you'll really enjoy building a custom GPT for market analysis for you. But let me pivot to the last two questions I'd love to ask my guests. This has been actually a lot of key takeaways, I'm sure, for people listening. So you've been in the industry for 20 years. If Nikki were to start the business today as a new agent, or just looking back, what would be the one piece of advice you'd give people listening to the pod that can help
Um, find find the right ecosystem for you. Find a great mentor. Invest
them?
in your education, and frankly, be willing to roll up your sleeves and do the work. And sometimes it's all the stuff that is not highlighted on all the TV shows. This is grueling work. And if there are agents in your office who are offering you opportunities, take the opportunities, because working on what you may feel is something that is not worth it to you. What is happening is that when you say no to that, you have you have put yourself in a certain frame with that agent. So then when that agent gets the things that they still need help with, that might be exactly what you wanted to do, you weren't willing to work on the small thing or to learn a new skill. And I think that that is something that is a huge industry problem. Everybody wants to be like, super luxury influencer. And statistically, that's just not possible. It's not
Yeah,
possible. The luxury market is such a small segment of every market. And if you think of that in relation to how many people are in the market and the traits of people who are like, it just doesn't make sense. And just work the ladder. It's a ladder. Just
yeah.
it's not rocket science. It is hard work, and just work through the process.
Great advice. Great advice. I mean, the power of experiences. It's from coming from somebody else. Wisdom is somebody else's experience that you can apply to yourself, and that was a lot of good takeaways there from your lesson. So, final question. I don't know if you're more of an audible book person, podcast person. So if you had to pick one that has been very influential in shaping you, Nikki, what would that be?
I love books. I go in and out of audiobooks, probably
Yeah.
because I walk almost everywhere and I should really be paying attention to my walking more than anything else. But one of my favorite books is The Speed of Trust. And
Ah,
it's by
yeah,
Stephen Covey, the son, not the father.
got it.
And it's an incredible book. And to me, trust has to be earned. There isn't an app for it. And positioning yourself as that trusted advisor that is the go-to for your clients for all things, not just real estate, but we live and work in our communities. So we can
Yeah,
really be that resource that people call for everything. But if they don't trust you, it's not really going to go anywhere. And by the way, we can all see through the phoniness. So it's being who you are and leaning into that for sure. But The Speed of Trust, I go back to it almost every year. It's a great book.
wow, that's a great suggestion. We've done 60 plus episodes now, and that book hasn't come up, so I'm going to add it to my list. Nikki, this has been fun. We've known each other on social media forever, it seems to me.
For forever,
And,
we probably met at an Inman a million years
yeah,
ago.
yeah.
Feels like much longer these days because
It sure does. But I'm so glad we could connect and have you as a guest. And this has been incredibly valuable. And I look forward to seeing you in person real soon,
yes,
sometime.
in person real soon sometime for sure.
Yeah. Thank you for being on,
My
Nikki.
pleasure.